everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk About It. It is so good to see you, to come back into your home. Yes, we've got a great topic for you today, and as usual, Danny is here with me.
Hello
Hello.
there.
How you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. Well, it's good to see you back on the set with me.
It's good to be sitting on the set with you.
I was talking to someone today earlier that I was in the gym and we was just exercising and having a good time and they went to tell me about you and being on the set. And they said, we love to see him on the set with you. I said, well, I'm going to have to tell him that so that he can come on a little more often. So I'm glad you're here with me today.
Well, let's not bank on that, but I'm here today.
All right, sounds good. Well, hello again, everyone. It's good to see you wherever you are, wherever you're watching this broadcast. It's such a pleasure to come into your home. I invite you to go ahead and get your coffee or your Coke or whatever it is that you enjoy to drink, your iced tea. And let's talk about a few things here today. There's such a crisis going on in the United States, such a crisis going on, but there's more than one crisis going on. There's some things that's going on right here within our families, within the community, within our schools, and we want to talk about that. Today, our topic is opioid addiction and dependence. Yes, you heard me right. Opioid addiction and dependence. The U.S. is in the midst of an opioid overdose epidemic. And if you are someone you know needs help or anything like that, I hope that they get that help and that this will bring some more awareness to you and will give you some information so that you can watch for certain symptoms and things, because we go to the doctor, we go to the hospital. Yes, we have sickness in our bodies sometime, and when that happens, we receive our medication, but we have to be aware of the fact that there is an opioid addiction and there is an epidemic going on. I was just listening this morning on CNN how they were saying that right there in the state of Ohio, they were talking about, Danny, how just in 1 week there were 28 overdoses, and they were showing how persons were just taking medications and things of that nature. 28 in 1 week. 28 in 1 week overdose of opioid addiction. And we know that physical and psychological reliance on opioids, which is a substance found in certain prescription pain medications and illegal drugs such as heroin. So not all of the things that they take is legal. Some of it is out on the streets and is illegal. Opioids are prescribed to treat pain. I want to tell you a little bit about it before we begin to talk about it. But with prolonged use, pain relieving effects may lessen and pain can become worse. In addition, the body can develop dependence. Opioid dependence causes withdrawal symptoms, just like you're taking any other drug that's illegal. Opioid addictions will cause you to go through a withdrawal process because once it gets in your system, the systems begin to yearn for that opioid, just like a person that smokes cigarettes. If they no longer have that cigarette there, and they began, because many years ago, I smoked cigarettes, probably about 30 years ago, and when I got ready to quit, I could feel the withdrawal, I could feel the desire of wanting to have that cigarette. It's the same thing with opioid addictions and opioid symptoms. Opioid dependency causes withdrawal symptoms. So we want to look for those symptoms and make sure that when we're taken off the medication, Danny, that we're not having those withdrawals, because that's one sign that you can check to find out if that medication can have possibly caused an addiction, which makes it difficult. It makes it difficult to stop taking them. That's why persons will say, I'm still sick. I'm still not well. I'm still not feeling good. And because the body is now addicted to the medication, and you think you're still sick.
Yeah, and so you brought up a couple of interesting facts. You talked about opioid addiction, and then you compare that to opioid dependence. And what happens is sometimes you'll have a minor procedure, could be something as small as a root canal or a dental procedure done, and your dentist or whoever may provide a hydrocodone pharmaceutical for you to reduce the pain. What happens is sometimes you'll take this as a precursor to the pain actually occurring. And if you're not careful, your body becomes dependent upon this particular drug to make you not feel the pain. And so you really go into the opioid dependence In other words, you take it because you think you may have some pain. And dependence can lead to addiction. Time Magazine did an article in this 2020, and it was called the Opioid Diaries.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Opioid Diaries, they talked about that there were 64,000 people a year now dying from overdose on opioids. In fact, they said
64,000
per year.
per year.
So they
Okay.
said that was the worst addiction epidemic in history that we have. Of course, now we move into the coronavirus situation, but we do that a different day. But when we talk about opioids, sometimes we run away from it and we ignore the facts that basically there was a survey done with pastors, and they said from 64% knew somebody who was dealing with opioids in their congregation. In other words, somebody was misusing painkillers. And then in the Opioid Diaries, this particular article went to depth and detail to show what was happening in America. They portrayed Americans who were in their cars, suffering, struggling to do what they could to get this injection or these pills. And it shows the face of the opioid addiction. When you can give a face to a tragedy, you can see real live men, women, boys, and girls that are actually suffering from this epidemic. Then it brings it closer to home to help us understand and to realize that it does exist. It's in here in Monroe, Louisiana.
Yes.
It's prevalent throughout the country.
Yes.
And it becomes incumbent upon us is how can we notice it? How can we become aware of it? How can we pay attention to it? And from that point forward, what can we do to combat, to alleviate, or to help somebody that's in our own backyard from this tragedy that's going on right here throughout the country as well as in Monroe?
But that's why it's so important for us to do just what we're doing, and that's to talk about it, to bring some information and some awareness to you, because it's not only adults that are becoming addicted to opioid, but they're also children, and they're
Right.
teens in the schools that have become addicted to the opioid, have an opioid addiction, and it's because they get into medication, like you're saying, a football player. Give you an example. Football player injures themselves. They go to the doctor, they get pain medication, and that pain medication begins to make them feel good. It releases the endorphins in the brain, and it makes them feel good, and so now they continue to take the medication longer than what they need to because it relates to the pain. Mm-hmm. Even though the pain is not there, for some reason they relate it to the pain, and they feel like I still need this because I'm still hurting and I'm hurting a little bit. And that's many times how they can become addicted. And also taking more, not only just taking the medication, but then taking more than the prescribed amount or using illegal opioids like heroin may result in death, where you would, on the prescription it says, take one every 7 hours, and you decide, well, it's not going to hurt me. I'm going to take one every 2 hours. And then that you begin to find out that you're over medicating yourself, and the high comes on, and they get used to the high. So taking more than the prescribed amount can result in death as well.
Yeah. And so when you brought that subject up and you're talking about teens and opioid use and or addiction, one thing is we have to ask the question is, as parents, is can I stop my child from taking opioids, or how can I prevent them from having addiction? Well, the answer is straight out, you probably cannot. What you do is you put precursors in place to help them not have it. Most children who get addicted to opioids, they're taking drugs that were somebody else's. In other words, a friend plays football, they both play football. The friend gets injured, he gets some pain pills. Then this guy has some small pain from maybe overworking his muscle. He'll say, well, give me one of your pain pills. Or he may say, here, try one of my pain pills. It's going to help your problem. And so they can get drawn into very innocently to take opioids with no desire to have this effect, no intention to do wrong. But life happens. And we as parents and grandparents and mentors and guardians for our children, we must know is when our child has a injury or a pain, to talk to them about, okay, have you taken aspirin? Have you taken ibuprofen? Have you taken Advil? Has anybody given you something that they already have? And we must have conversation with them, an open door, and not ignore that these things do happen. And a lot of addiction, they begin with somebody getting somebody else's pain pill. That was their prescribed pain pill, which is, I mean, probably it's not a good thing to do. It's probably illegal too, but anyway. But you innocently get this. And so we do have to talk to our children about this particular issue and what we can do to combat that.
Yeah, you know, I remember when our grandson broke his neck playing football. And here he is, a football player, very healthy and doing fine. And he had an injury where he actually broke his neck. What was that bone back there he broke?
Broke his C2.
Broke his C2 in his neck. And I spent that time with him, the full time with him, that he had to just lay there. And he would say, Granny, you know, and I'd give him the water and make sure that I had to sit him up in a particular way and things like that. But I also had to administer his medication to him. And it had at what time we're supposed to give him the medication. If in pain, it says on there. If in pain. That was the key. If in pain, he was to take that particular. And I would ask him very well, Joshua, are you hurting? No, ma'am. Are you sure you're not hurting? No, ma'am. Well, guess what? I didn't give the medication. And then there was once or twice he said, well, I'm hurting just a little bit. I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I said, well, okay, well, let's see if we can move you around just a little bit or shift you on the bed a little bit to see if maybe I can get you a little bit more comfortable. And I knew what I was doing. I was doing whatever I needed to do not to give him the medication unless I really needed to give him the medication if he was really hurting.
Right.
And so we have to be careful about that. And I found out that at the end of his injury, when everything has healed and we got him back, you know, got the back to the hospital and he got the little thing on his neck brace off of it, there was still a half a bottle of medication because he didn't need all of that. He only needed a little bit, so he was not there. So it's important, parents, if your child is injured, that you monitor. The doctors do a great job at giving them what they need so that they won't be in pain. But once again, we have to monitor that because once you get home, your pain may not be as great as it was when you were in the hospital. So you have to monitor that. Remember, I had a small surgery and I had some medication and it said to take it. I'm not sure now how long, but in case of pain. And what did you do? You got a tablet and you wrote down, you split the amount and you wrote down when I took it, how much I took. And then it was, and for a while I said, okay, I'm not hurting. I don't need anything right now. And you said, okay. And we put it aside. And then I think a day or two passed and I got to moving around and got to hurting a little bit. And you said, okay. And you monitored that. And you gave me a half a tablet. And you said, and when we finished, once again, all the medication wasn't taken because you only take all the medication if a doctor say take all medication. Usually it's saying take if needed for pain. So we have to make sure that we're not just taking it so that we don't get addicted to it. And once again, I was fine afterwards, never took all the medication, just like our grandson. Right, so we have to monitor. That's what we're saying to you. We're not telling you to disobey any doctor's rules or orders or anything like that. What we're doing is giving you information. Information is knowledge. Information is power. My people perish because of a lack of knowledge. We're giving you some information, some knowledge, and saying to you to use, you can still use wise decisions, you still use wisdom, and being able to monitor your medication and just write it down. You can write it down and let your doctor know. Yeah, record it. That, hey, this is what I took. This is how many I took. I didn't need a full tablet, so I only took a half tablet. Those are some words of wisdom to those of you that may be on pain medication or have had an injury or something.
Yeah, so not to be confused with antibiotics. Now, in your antibiotics, you used to take the full dose. Yes. But opioid, which is pain relievers and pain killers, you use them as necessary, which you brought that up. You took your medication. You took less than a fourth of what's prescribed for you. So the next thing comes as parents as being and good stewards is what happens to the medication when I no longer need it? Well, we've partnered with Northeast Delta Human Services and we have prescription take-back programs throughout the city. Is you get rid of that medication. If you don't keep it in your house, then no one's going to get an opportunity to use it.
Right. The children, it will not, if you have children or teenagers especially, then it won't be accessible to them to use it for a high. And that's usually what happens, how they get addicted to it. They use it for a high, to numb their pain, their social pains, to numb their feelings of not being wanted or not being loved, and the things that they go through, the peer pressure of life itself, and things that that other teens are doing. And we're going to talk more about that in another show coming up, about how the peer pressure is pressuring our teens into wanting to be high and have a good time. And you can't have a good time unless you are high, smoking weed or drinking or taking pills that you shouldn't take. And then next thing you know, you are addicted to opioids. Then it says treatment varies, but may include discontinuing the drug. The number one thing is the best treatment is discontinuing the drug.
Yeah. To quit using. And there are some cases now, because it's such an epidemic, there are drugs out there that they use, like Narcan, which is a nasal spray that you can get for free from many locations. And it will help reverse the action of the opioid in case you find somebody that's suffering from that problem. It can actually save their life. And so it becomes important for us to understand the opioid, how it operates, and how to spot it. And if it's going on, say, with your child, is your child not brushing their teeth, or they're not combing their hair? Has their behavior changed from what the norm is? So we as parents, we've got to be on the lookout for our children. We can't just let them come and go and not paying attention to them, because sometimes they struggle with identity crisis, peer pressure, lack of enthusiasm or self-esteem.
And that was one of the questions that I was getting ready to ask you. How can you know if your child is misusing opioids? What are some of the signs? How can you know?
Pay attention. That's your child that you've had from infancy, from birth, or whatever. So you know their patterns. You know how they respond on different activities. You know how they talk to you, how they talk to their siblings, how they talk to anybody else. When these patterns begin to vary, begin to look and ask why. Did they cut themselves? Did they fall? Has there been an injury? Did they play sports? Or did they play baseball, tennis? Look for anything that's changed in that child's life. It's really small. If that child comes in and they used to laugh and talk and play, but now they come home and go upstairs or go down the hall or go in the basement, where in the basement in Louisiana. But anyway, anyway.
Somebody may have a basement.
Yeah. Anyways, but they go someplace now and close the doors to be by themselves, or they spend all their time with their gaming device. Look for patterns of change.
Yes.
Have their circle of friends actually changed, and do they come around more or less? Whatever sparks something that's different than that child's life.
Who are they hanging out with?
Right.
And
Where are they?
And even the lifestyle of who they're hanging out with. Parents, we have to know who our children hang out with. You know, our daughter used to get ready to go out and say, "Mom, can I go spend the night with so-and-so?" I said, "Well, who is she? Who are her parents?" And I want to know all details.
Yeah, what are you
Why?
gonna be
Because
doing?
I want to know absolutely, what will you be doing? Where will you be going? Who's going with you? How long you're going to be there? How long? All of these things. Parents, we have to be aware of what's going on with our children. And I say this because the epidemic among children, teenagers that are addicted to opioids is rising. I told you it's an epidemic in the United States. It's rising. And all of these people are not elderly and full adults. Many of them are teenagers. That's why we have to know these things, this information, so that we'll know how to respond to our children in love, to make sure that nothing is changing in their life and that they're hanging around the right friends. And, because my grandson says, "Well, those are my friends." I'm like, "Yeah, but I want to know, even with my grandson, I want to know who you hanging out with." My granddaughter, our granddaughter Leslie is in college. This is her senior year at Xavier. And we asked her the same thing. "Leslie, who are your friends? You know, where you going? Who you going with?" Why? It's important, even at her age of 23, to know, who she's hanging out with, because the Bible says evil communication corrupts good behavior. You can hang out with the wrong person, and next thing you know, it ain't going to hurt you. Just go on and take this. It's going to make you feel good, and you're just going to have a little high. And what may work for one teenager, and they've been taking it and they not get addicted, then that person can take that one pill. And now all of a sudden they want more, and they want more, and they want more. And that's how many times it starts, Danny.
Yeah, everybody has a different tolerance level for any type of medication. And again, communication is one of the key factors when you're going to talk to your children, your grandchildren, or whomever. A lot of times children feel neglected and they feel that they're not cared about or they're not loved because we don't take the time to talk to them. And so I want to emphasize that do not allow your job, your friends, your golf, your baseball, your basketball, or anything to take away from you spending time with your family. Because it can be your spouse. You know, your spouse could have gone to the doctor and got prescribed a medication, and you don't ask, well, did you get medication today? And so what is it and what's it for? And they could begin to have an opioid addiction sitting right there beside you and you not know it. And you can misread the signs of them moving toward depression for something different. And it's an opioid addiction.
Yeah. Well, let me give them some more information. Let me give you some more information about opioid addiction because I know you're listening to
Or
us.
perhaps dependence.
And we want to make sure that you've got this information. The opioid addiction is a long-lasting chronic disease that can cause major health, social, and economic problems. Why? Because you're going to need the money to continue the habit. Opioids are a class of drugs that act in the nervous system to produce feelings of pleasure and pain relief. Did you get that? It brings about a feeling of pleasure. That's why it becomes an addiction. Everybody likes to feel good, and it brings about that pleasure. Some opioids are legally prescribed by, of course, we know healthcare providers to manage severe and chronic pain. But others we know are ones that are illegal, okay, that they get out on the streets. Opioid addiction is characterized by a powerful, compulsive urge to use opioid drugs, even when they are no longer required medically, even when they're off the pills medically because the doctor has taken them off. Then that desire is a powerful compulsiveness to want that drug again. And that's when we see where a person that's addicted will do things that they ordinarily would not do to get that medicine and to get that drug.
Yeah, that brings up it's that feeling of euphoria. And what happens is once you get to that point, then your body will adapt to what you've given it to, be it a controlled substance or not. And over a period of time, your body requires more of that same drug to reach the same level of experience or feeling good or feeling high or what term you want to call it. And so the dependence moves into the addiction because now the mind says the only time I can be truly happy is when I have this drug, when I have this substance. And we want to combat and catch it before it gets to that point. That's how the addiction got so high. The drug just got to be available everywhere. It's in everybody's medicine cabinet.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say right here. Many prescription opioids are misused or diverted to others. Individuals who become addicted may prioritize getting and using these drugs over other activities in their lives. It becomes the number one thing. I've got to have that drug. And so they prioritize that as that's the number one thing they've got to get done over other activities and other things in their lives, often negatively impacting their professional and their personal relationships. That's why earlier we said to watch the behavior, especially of your teens or your mate or someone else that you're with, to see if there's any change in their lives after a sickness or after an injury, to see if, then make sure that you're watching these kind of things, because that right there is a way of helping that person just by watching to make sure that there's no change.
Right. Looking for what would be abnormal behavior for that particular person. And that's why it becomes, I guess, incumbent upon us to watch. My wife watches me. Sometimes she walk in the door and she look at me and say, "What's wrong with you?" I look at her, nothing, I don't think. But guess what? That can sound insulting, but that's also a sign of compassion and caring. Okay, you don't look right today.
Right.
What's happened to you? Did you have a bad day, or is there something more that I should know about? And if that pattern continues over a period of time, then you know something's going on. And if you're only happy certain times of the day, are they taking something to bring about this feeling of overjoy, happiness? But then immediately, a few hours later, they're back down to still depression. So we got to look for these things.
Yeah, definitely, because opioids can change the chemistry of the brain and lead to drug tolerance, which means that over time, the dose needs to be increased to achieve the same effect. In other words, the longer they take it, they have to start increasing it to get, in other words, right, they need more and more to get that same effect. Taking opioids over a long period of time produces dependence, such as that when people stop taking the drug, they have physical and psychological symptoms of withdrawal, such as muscle cramps, diarrhea, anxiety. Dependency is not the same thing as addiction, okay? So we want you to understand, dependency is not the same thing as addiction. Although everyone who takes opioids for an extended period of time will become dependent, but only a small percentage also experience the compulsive, continuing need for the drug that characterizes addiction. So it's a difference between the addiction and the dependency upon it.
Absolutely. And we learned more about this drug and the effects it has upon our society and those whom we love. And the thing we have also is we recognize that these things are among us. They're in our homes, our churches, our grocery stores, the places where we go. And we have to help those who can. And next time we talk about this topic, we're going to discuss what can you do and what can I do to help this addiction, the people involved. How can we be mindful of what needs to happen?
And here's a good start right here. Yes, and here's a good start right here, because we are talking about it. We're giving you information, and we know that you're going to be aware of it, because this is great information, especially if you've got teens in the house, or if you've been someone or have a mate or someone in the house that has been hurt or have been taking medication. Well, we are so glad once again to come back into your house, home, or wherever you might be watching this broadcast. We want to remind you to come out and see us at the Walk in the Word Church, 1201 Stubbs Avenue, right here in the city of Monroe, because I believe that you'll be glad that you did. We've got service going on every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. and then again on Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. And the Word of God is being preached in power. People are being healed, delivered, and set free right there at the Walk in the Word Church. So go ahead, put it on your calendar, and come out and see us on Sunday mornings. We have service there for our children, nursery, teens, adults, everything, all kind of outreach ministries that's right there, Danny, at the Walk in the Word Church. And you know, it's a good place to be. It's a good place to be because it's a church filled with love, filled with the power of God, and we have a great time there.
And we love to see you there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We'd love to see you come and visit with us right there at the Walk in the Word Church. See you next time on Let's Talk About It.